I'm going to start the show today with the former Speaker of the House. Go, Miss Pelosi.
Courtroom. When I wasn't in the courtroom, of course, but when I saw his coming out of his car and this or that, I saw a scared puppy.
Folks, that was last week. It did not make the cut for the show, but I want to talk about it today, get you all caught up with all the news. Welcome to GAMcast for August 7th, 2023. Got a lot of Trump news out there, GOP news, race wars, why the race hoaxes are bad for the minorities more than anyone else. We're going to spend a little bit of time with that later. And a bunch of other stuff. I can get to it. We'll see. Kind of a slow news day because, as per usual, Trump has decided he wants to take over the cycle. But before I get to all that, I want to say I'm more optimistic than I have been in quite some time that things are starting, the pendulum is starting to swing back. It really is. These people are not bright. And if they had any sense at all, they wouldn't fall into this trap that they're about to fall into. But I think that, as per usual, I don't know how he does it, but Trump seems to play him like a Stradivarius, and he certainly is this time. So sorry about not being able to do a show on Friday. I told you I probably wouldn't be able to, and I wasn't. I had to go up to St. Louis to watch a colleague of mine get sworn in to the bench. It was kind of fun. Good to see the people again. And interestingly, as we were heading back, I think we left the investiture party, and we were going to the bar to get one more drink to go to the airport, is when this truth came out. And if you're watching the show on YouTube, Rumble later, or Twitter right now, you can see it. And it reads as follows: "If you go after me, I'm coming after you!" Exclamation point. Trump tweeted that around 4:30 on Friday. And the left wing, especially left-wing lawfare, went crazy. Now, folks, Jack Smith, and this is a lot of what's going on out there. If he had any sense at all, he would have just ignored the lawfare. And by lawfare, what I mean is there's a whole group of cabal out there. I've talked to you about it before. A lot of them were former Obama DOJ people, right? Either district attorneys or in the Department of Justice or whatever, and they are rabid partisans. I mean, they go on MSNBC, they say the craziest stuff, they have the craziest theories. You would flunk law school if you listen to these people, I promise you. I can't tell if they know they're lying or they don't care, or if they just deranged and the law is whatever they say it is, just like we're going to get to Biden's continuing lies, where they just say things and they're factually easily debunkable, but they continue to say them. So anyway, but they were saying, "Oh my God, this is threatening the witnesses. This is tampering with the trial. This is dangerous," and it's not. But of course, Jack Smith couldn't just ignore it. He filed a motion for a protective order, because if you come after me, I'm coming after you! Exclamation point. Other than being a true statement, I don't even know what it means. I mean, what does it even mean? If somebody comes after me, I'm going to come after them. How do you even know what he's talking about? And let's just go through real quickly, because Smith filed a motion. You would have thought anybody that took the first week of constitutional law would have known to not file the motion, because that's not actionable conduct. It just isn't. It's not even close. It's laughably not close. What does the judge do? She says, "Oh, you filed a motion on Friday. Why, I need to hear from Trump's lawyers by today." Right? 0 business days. You have 0 business days. You will respond by 5 p.m. today. Now, again, this is what these people think is somehow following the law. This is what they think is somehow just. To anyone who reads that statement, which is plainly true, and nobody knows what it means except God and Trump, right? All right. And it's clearly not actionable, which I'm going to get to in a minute, right? Why would the judge do that? Because they're being played. I mean, he's clearly trying to, egg them on, and he did a bunch of other truths. I'm not going to go through all those things because I know enough to ignore it. But the landmark case out there, whenever you hear about the incitement, is one of the few exceptions to the First Amendment. And if you are trying to incite something, you do not have a First Amendment right to incite violence. You simply do not. All right, now, let's look at that statement. Again, the statement is, "If you come after me, I'm coming after you!" Exclamation point. I'm not going to go through Brandenburg in detail. I've done it before. Anyway, I have, but I'm not going to go through what he said and explain to you. All you really need to know is there's 2 steps you have to have. The speech can be prohibited if it is directed at inciting or producing imminent lawless action. And is important whenever you read a statute. If there's an and, it could be or. But if it's an and, you got to have both of them, right? And the second one is, it is likely to incite or produce such action, right? So if I say we got to burn this thing down, right? That is not directed at citing imminent lawless action, because what does imminent mean, right? Well, when are we going to burn it down? How are we going to burn it down, right? That's not enough. What I need to say is we're going to burn this thing down. You get the gas cans. You bring the matches. We're meeting down at City Hall at 8 o'clock. Now you got a problem. Now you've done it. It's imminent. I've got a plan. It's sufficiently definite. So we know that this is just Trump being Trump. But here we go. These people, by 5 o'clock today, Trump will drop his brief. If it were me, and I'm not joking about this, it would be about one page. See First Amendment. See Brandenburg versus Ohio. I mean, seriously, folks, if Chutkan had any sense, right, she would have said, no, you know what, Mr. Trump, your lawyers don't need to respond. Special prosecutor, your motion's denied, right? Don't file any more of these motions until you see something that comes close to satisfying Brandenburg. Don't do this. But she didn't do that. She's doing the exact opposite of that. Now, Joyce Eileen, she's part of the cabal I was referring to earlier. You can see her there. She actually, it's hard to believe, she's actually a law professor in addition to on MSNBC all the time. Here's what she had to say about one of Trump's truths along the lines of the ones we looked at here. Let's read one more just so you get a flavor for what's going on. So he tweeted this. Whatever reason, she didn't say when he tweeted it, but it was probably after the tweet that we saw a minute ago. Deranged Jack Smith is going before his number on the draft pick. The judge of his dreams, who must be recused in an attempt to take away my First Amendment rights. This must be after he filed the motion. This, despite the fact that he and the DOJ and many thug prosecutors are illegally leaking everything and anything to the fake news media. Now, okay, folks, this is just Trump. I mean, he doesn't like the prosecutor. He thinks the judge, and the judge has said very bad things. I read it for you last week when he was trying to have executive privilege. Presidents are not kings, as if that's creative. I mean, it's not even, nobody says you're a king. Anyway, so he's absolutely right about this, and I continue to maintain and will maintain. It is just, It really is heartbreaking, and I chose those words advisedly. That these people who claim to be the paragons of virtue, right? They're the ones that are constantly leaking. I mean, Jack Smith is a sieve. If he were a boat on the water, he'd be 20 leagues under the sea, right? He leaks constantly. But then Trump does anything, and they're on him. Folks, this is not sustainable. But anyway, here's what she had to say. This was about an hour ago. Trump is trying to push buttons. Okay, she at least gets it, right? He is trying to do that. He wants to see the prosecutors or the judge react, give him an excuse, right? All right. So as deeply troubling as this is, okay, now stop right there, Joyce. Why is it troubling? See, this is what's called democracy that you supposedly think is sacrosanct. This is what's called the law, right? This is what's called the Constitution. He has a right to do this. I probably wouldn't do this if I were him. But what we have to understand is they, right, accuse us of that which they're doing, right? They don't like political disagreement. That's why it troubles Joyce. There's no reason than that. Okay, anyway, the path forward for prosecutors and for the court is to continue to do their jobs, one foot in front of the other, and get the case to trial. Now, I agree with that. Here's the problem, Joyce. Here's the problem. And I think what she means would be to gag him or to jail him is what I think she means. She doesn't say, and I haven't had a chance to dig into it. We'll dig into it as the week unfolds. But that's exactly what these people think. So let's go to circle back. And again, I can't believe I'm broadcasting in the United States of America. And the former White House press secretary of the current president actually has a show on a news program. I mean, that's literal insanity. I mean, even George Orwell wouldn't believe this. But anyway, here's again two of the cabals. Neil Katyal, I think, was in Obama's DOJ. Andrew Weissman, who is just not a well person. He, I believe, was the general counsel for the FBI, but during Obama's term as well. But he would have been a predecessor to that. But he's, again, one of these people that comes in, and, I mean, folks, there's two possibilities here. There's the possibility that when he was at the FBI or CIA, wherever he was, and he was the general counsel, he was actually following the law dutifully. Now he's gotten a job, and he's lying about it. That could be what it is. I don't think that's what it is, but that could be. Right. The other possibility is that he's been a rabid partisan the whole time. I'm going to take option B on that one, but let's hear what they have to say about this. This is all having to do with, if you come after me, I'm coming after you.
All of the protective order is to stop Trump from sharing evidence. But what about these social media posts that they may not share evidence, but they are still threatening? So what can the judge actually do? I mean, especially the Mike Pence one, which reads like a clear threat. What can
Right, see, they're threatening. Well, okay, so you read minds now, circle back? I mean, she doesn't know what they're. I mean, it's an innocuous statement. And again, this is if you understand the Constitution and you understand the law, right? Only if we can prove it beyond any reasonable doubt can we act on it. Not to these people. To these people, I'm the person, and we're going to get to it in a minute. I've got a bit in here where somebody's going to actually say we're the ones in charge. Basically, we decide. But that's not the way it's supposed to work. And the problem with this for old Circleback is I think she honestly believes this in her heart of hearts, and that's fine. She shouldn't be anywhere near power. And I understand now she's just on MSNBC, but she was in power, right? And she influences people on power. This is dangerous to get that out there into the American mainstream. That's the problem we have with it. The good news again is they're going too far. I think that people are going to sooner or later they're going to realize. And let me explain what I mean by that. You know, I thought about this over the weekend, but you know these people don't quite realize. You know, there's only a few tens of thousands of them. I mean, all of them. That little DC cabal over there, all the people that are really in charge in the FBI and the people that have the gigs at MSNBC and CNN, and they live these wonderful lives where they make a lot of money, they get a lot of power, they all get to hang out. They got a pretty good sweet deal over there. They might want to chill out because there are millions of us, and they get those cushy little jobs like Circleback has there only because we continue to play the game and continue to let them do that. They don't seem to understand that because they don't understand history. That's why they call us fascists when clearly they're the fascists, right? But what happens to the fascists, right? Eventually the fascists go too far and the people say, okay, we've now had enough of this, right? And those people are no longer in power. But anyway, so here she is. What can we do, right? The obvious answer is going to be to jail these people. And what you should have heard if these people were being honest is what I told you. Well, you know, Jen, as much as I don't like what Trump is doing and, you know, I can't stand him, that doesn't satisfy Brandenburg. I find this motion will be denied and we just have to, you know, sit back and listen and let this process play out. The president is entitled to say these things, which I frankly disagree with, but, you know, he's entitled to say, nope, you're going to hear anything like that. Here's what you're going to hear.
Do to stop that?
And again, but stop that. I mean, think about that. Why do you want to stop it, Jen? Why isn't he entitled to say what he... This is how petty these people are. She doesn't like that he says bad things about Jack Smith. She doesn't like that somebody says critical things about the judge. Now, we're going to get to that. Joyce Eileen, who we saw earlier, who's part of this cabal, let's see what she has to say about Judge Cannon later. See, again, the complete double standard or no standard at all, really. But let me I think it's Wiseman's going to take this one.
And, you know, it's worth noting that on Thursday at the arraignment, Donald Trump, under oath, swore that he would not retaliate against or threaten any potential witness. And then the next day, that post and others with respect to Mike Pence were issued. So what can the judge do? Well, the judge can start by bringing the parties in and giving, you know, a sort of stern lecture. You know, this is, you know, an admonition that you have one more chance. The other thing...
All right, before you tell us what the other thing is, and I don't know, a stern lecture? I mean, seriously, this person used to be I think it was the FBI, it might have been CIA, it doesn't matter. He was the general flipping counsel. He was the head law person. And he thinks a judge who's just an ordinary human being. Does this sound like government of the people, by the people, and for the people to you? Come in and give you a stern lecture? Really? I mean, anyway.
Judge can do, because remember, Donald Trump is out on bail.
Now that's really what they want. That's really what he's out on bail. See? Again, into their minds, it doesn't matter that, hey, yeah, he's out on bail. He has a constitutional right to do certain things. And I'm not kidding you, folks. This is not as easy as it sounds. Like, because I remember I don't do a lot of criminal stuff, but I have occasionally done some criminal things. And I went down for a friend once who had, I don't know what he had done. I can't remember exactly what was done. It was something having to do with his girlfriend. I can't recall exactly what. And she called the cops, and the cops took him away. And he were going down there, and I was standing in there for him. And he was going to plead not guilty, and they wanted certain conditions for him to put his bail up. And the prosecutor was a female, and she came up and she said, "We want him to not be able to be around a firearm." And I give the judge credit. This is probably 15, 20 years ago. And he said, why? Well, he reportedly, owns a shotgun. He's like, that's not illegal. It's legal to own shotguns. What if he wants to go hunting? And literally, it was amazing. I tell you this story to tell you this. The prosecutor literally couldn't understand what the judge was talking about. Like, yeah, but we don't want him to have that. Yeah, okay, well, he's got rights. And again, I think that same conversation today would be very different. And folks, this is not a good thing. And that's what, Wiseman, he seems to think that the judge is a queen, right? And she gets to say what you can do and what you can't do. And if she decides she don't like what you're doing, she'll just revoke your bail and you go to jail. That's what he honestly believes. Now, of course, they're not going to happen to any of them, right? Because they're the in crowd. It's going to happen to us. So it gets worse. And this is one of the things I keep saying. I mean, I do think we're starting. There is a sea change coming. I really do believe it. I think people are finally starting to wake up, right? And think about it. 5, 6, 7 years ago, before Trump, you didn't realize any of this stuff. There's a lot of things we didn't realize. I didn't realize how far they'd go. I thought they'd stop at the kids. No, they're going right through that potential roadblock, and they're going for the kids, right? I thought eventually they would have to kind of stop with some of these lock prosecutions. Oh, no, they're still claiming if you challenge, say, anything about election, you're an election denier. They're still trying to work this rap that this is, we're going to get to Billy Barr in a minute, that, an insurrection is what we say it is. Right? Yeah. And yeah, you can take, did you know that you could take over the United States with a Viking hat and some zip ties? I mean, I'm shocked that they're continuing to run this up the flagpole, but this little, I'd never heard of this person, Tara Setmayer or something. She's getting ready to go on a rant here for a minute. She's a Lincoln Project person. And I'm sorry this is relevant, but it is. She's a black female. And she claims that she's a quote, sane conservative or whatever, right? And this is part of these Lincoln people. I called them from the very beginning. It's a big hoax, right? They're the Lincoln lawyers. We're what the party should have been, right? Because Lincoln was one of the first prominent Republicans. Actually, before he became president, he was prominent, but he was nowhere near in the top 10 in the country. I don't want to get off on that thing. But anyway, so the idea is that we're the real Republicans, right? And it's clearly just a grift to get money from people, and they can't stand the Republican Party. And it started out, they're sort of anti-Trump, but now if you look at everything, they're anti-DeSantis, they're anti-Vivek, they're anti-anybody that doesn't just, and then they're out there promoting Democrats, for crying out loud, promoting Crazy Bernie. Give me a break. So anyway, but what I've said before is, think about what the party attracts. We started with the House Speaker, and she called Trump a scared puppy, right? And see, that's all great and funny, and that'll be extolled to the highest when she does it. But then when Trump comes out and says something, oh my God, that's terrible, right? But this is the way these people are. They're creating an atmosphere where people who talk like Pelosi get promoted. So what do you think you're going to get? You're going to get comments like scared puppy, and you're not going to get policies. You're going to get a show, a circus. So take a listen to what this woman has to say, and I'm going to let her go on for a while. But what happens is, we're going to get to the Oompa Loompa Chris Christie in a minute, I think. But before we get to the Oompa Loompa, right, notice once you start with the rhetoric, it only goes one way. It's not like you start out saying, well, I don't think, I think Trump is unfit for office, right? Well, sooner or later, you're going to get around to, that's not, unfit's not going to be enough. You're going to have to ratchet it up to, something. I'll let Chris Christie say what it is, right? But that's what we're in right now. Is there's no mechanism to ratchet this back, and so it's just going too far. Take a listen to what she has to say about what's Trump going on. I'm going to let you listen to probably about 30 seconds of it.
Yeah, Donald Trump is completely unhinged. And as we watch his behavior, this is the behavior of a scared little boy. It's clear because the way he lashes out, he only does this when he feels like he's not in control. So he goes ahead and he lashes out, he insults, he puts on these crazy unhinged rants on his Truth Social network. And really, because he is so afraid of Jack Smith, Jack Smith is the polar opposite of Donald Trump, and he knows it. Trump is an ignorant, gelatinous fool, and he is undisciplined. He is. Okay,
you get the idea. I mean, I just put that in there because, folks, what you just saw there, that game, that act, and I don't know if it's genuine game act or she's just grown up and she doesn't know any better. You can blame that. Pelosi taking over, I think it was around 2007 she became Speaker of the House. And I remember then, it's the greatest thing in the world. We got our first woman speaker, all this stuff. And think about her legacy now. 15 years later, you go back and you look at her legacy. She created this environment where I don't even know what the heck she's talking about. He's a gelatinous fool. He's a scared child. What does any of this even mean? And Jack Smith is this and Trump is that. Does anybody even know what we're talking about? What are we talking about, right? Well, we're going to get to what we're talking about. And here's Billy Barr. And I want you to understand, I've told you this before. And the reason I know this is because I follow this stuff very closely. And there's something out there called a safe harbor. Now, he doesn't use the term safe harbor. But I remember when they were throwing this around. And I'm going to say it again. This is as simple as I can put it. If the AP calls an election for a Democrat, that's it. That's it. The Democrat is now elected. Now, if it calls it for a Republican, you're going to go through this process, and I'm going to explain to you in a minute. All right? But if it's called for a Democrat, that's it. If you do, and this is the new rule, right? And if you do anything to try and push back against the AP calling the election for the Democrat, right, that's a coup. We're going to call it a coup. It's a coup. It's an insurrection. It's violating the law, and you're going to jail. That's exactly what they're saying, and he's going to say it here in a minute. You got to understand that. I'm not kidding. Now, if it's a Republican, we got a whole bunch of things you can do to be perfectly legal to do it. Because what Trump is accused of doing, right, the Democrats have already done. Right? They did it. In fact, they did it to Trump. But anyway, let's listen to Bill Barr explain away, because a lot of people are looking at the First Amendment route, and there's two First Amendments you have to understand here, right? The one is the right to your political speech. I think this thing was rigged. I think this election was fraud. You're entitled to say that. They can't make a law that says you can't. Now, they think they can. They can say, well, if you say an election was fraudulent, why you're putting a cloud on the title of the presidency, and that's illegal speech. That's a conspiracy. That's what they're trying to do. That's one part. The other problem is Trump is permitted to try to seek redress. That's the one that people aren't really mentioning. But I'm not worried about the First Amendment of this. I mean, I know Jonathan Turley is, and I agree with him. I think it is a lot of First Amendment problems. But the bigger problem is that, to me, is something much bigger than that. But let's let Bill Barr try to explain this away. And the reason I'm playing this is twofold. One, so you understand what's going on with this election stuff. And two, understand who Bill Barr is. This is the deep state talking right here. This is some serious deep state stuff. Now, it's all bluster and nonsense, right? But it's pure sophistry. People think, the word sophisticated comes from the old sophists back in the Greek debates. The sophists were the people that weren't interested in the debate. They didn't have any facts, but they would teach you how to say things so that you sounded good and you could convince people. They're frauds, basically, right? And this is pure sophistry. Take a listen.
Last time you were on the show, you said, quote, the January 6th case will be a hard case to make because of First Amendment interest, unquote. Having read the indictment, is that still your view?
Well, it's certainly a challenging case, but I don't think it runs afoul of the First Amendment. And there's a lot of confusion about this out there. Maybe I can crystallize it. This involved a situation where the states had already made the official and authoritative determination as to who won in those states, and they sent the votes and certified them to Congress.
All right. Now, folks, that's what he just said there is the safe harbor. And I think it's December 20th or something. It's around that. And again, the reason I know this and he knows this is that Trump's plan crystallized and was being reported in the AP and in the Washington Post in late November 2020 and early December 2020. So they knew that he was going to go and challenge the certification on January 6th. So riddle me this, Batman. Why do we have January 6th if what Bill Barr just said is true? But that's the safe harbor, right? In other words, hey, they've already decided that they've already said who won, and then they send it to January 6th, and that's just a ceremonial thing. It's just ceremonial. They bring the cabinet down, they open it, and they count the votes. That's all that is. And I'm gonna do it again because I want you to hear what he said. That's all nonsense, Bill. If that's the way it is, Bill, then why do we have the Electoral Count Act of 1887? Why do we have this whole procedure that I've laid out for you, where if Ted Cruz and he can get a congressperson, right, and they object, and then you've got to go it's in the flipping law. Why do we have that if what you just said is true? Listen to it again.
This involved a situation where the states had already made the official and authoritative determination as to who won in those states, and they sent the votes and certified them to Congress. The allegation essentially... All
right, I'm going to let him do the allegation. We're going to move on. But I want you to understand that. And I've been saying this from the beginning. I've wrote about it. I don't understand why they can continue to say this garbage. There is a procedure. Why is the procedure there? I'll tell you why the procedure is there. Because that was what the founders wanted. If there was fraud in the election, don't go to the courts. It's not the courts you go to. It's Congress you go to. right? And the Congress in 1877 or whenever it was, they came up with the procedure. Question whether or not that Congress can control this Congress. It doesn't really matter. The point is, this is politics. This is what it is. You get to challenge, and that's exactly what Trump did. And Bill Barr is giving you this deep state nonsense. It's the same thing as the Boxes hoax, which we'll get to in a little bit. But the Boxes hoax is the same thing. We've got this whole way in which you have classified documents. And yeah, you can declassify them, but you have to follow our procedure. Wait a minute. If I have to follow your procedure, how am I the president? Well, I mean, you're the president, of course, and you sign these things and you do these things, but there's a way that we do it, and you have to do it this way. I read that indictment, too. You know what Jack Smith put in all that indictment? Executive order from Clinton, from going all the way back to Kennedy, you had executive orders. Why is he doing that? If Trump did something wrong, why is it an executive order, right? He can't. It doesn't make any sense at all. That's the point, though. We have this whole procedure you have to follow. And if you don't do what we say, right, you're violating the law. But anyway, he's going to continue on a little bit, and we're going to move on.
Government is that at that point, the president conspired, entered into a plan, a scheme that involved a lot of deceit, the object of which was to erase those votes, to nullify those lawful votes.
To disenfranchise people.
Right. And there were a number of things that were alleged. One of them is that they tried to bully the state authorities.
Okay, whatever. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, yes, we understand, but I just want you to understand, when they finally let their hair down, they'll tell you exactly what they're doing. Donald Trump is being prosecuted for following the law. Somebody thought up a theory. It's a theory that's happened before, 1876, 2016, 2008 it happened. I mean, it's happened many times before. It's never been criminal. Now it's criminal. All right. So a little bit of the election stuff going on here. Here's, again, this is how Trump continues to dominate everything that's going on. I think this is Katie Chung or somebody from one of the alphabet networks in BC. And these people really get on my nerves. And the reason they do is they can still to this day claim this whole idea that you're not allowed to say anything about an election. So think about this. You're an American. The election happens in a way that you can't see it. You can't go to any court and verify it as an American. I don't care what county you're sitting in. You do not have the right to go, hey, I'd like to go see my ballot and make sure it was counted. And I'd like to see all my neighbors. I don't need to see how they voted. I just want to make sure. You have no right to do that. And if you even question that, you got a problem. So listen to this.
Yes or no, did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election?
Whoever puts their hand on the Bible on January 20th every 4 years is the winner.
Okay, but respectfully, you did not clearly answer that question. And if you can't give a yes or no on whether or not Trump lost, then how
Of course he lost.
Trump lost the 2020 election?
Of course.
Okay.
Joe Biden's the president. But the issue is, I think, what people in the media...
And she's not going to let him get to the issue. But I just want you to understand, they're still running that up the flagpole. Then this came around. This is just one of many things. I told you the story in Houston where, it was clear that on election day, Republicans turn out a lot. And then they ran out of ballots. Now, I don't know how many votes that swung to one person or another, but a lot of these people got elected with a couple hundred votes. And Houston, to this day, is refusing, even though there's a law that you're able to get some things, they're refusing to answer these questions. Well, here's the signature match from the Kerry Lake case. And this is a little video. If you're watching, you'll be able to see it on YouTube, Rumble, and Twitter. If not, I'm going to describe it to you for those who listen on the podcast. So on the podcast, what you're going to see is the person on the left is, and I will count the seconds out for you, that literally is approving about 1 second. They're approving. On the right, it's taking them about 3 or 4 seconds. So that in the time frame, I'll tell you how many have been counted. But the point is, you can't do it. And I did this. I was on vacation a couple of months ago, and I did this just for fun. Do this yourself. Next time you have a second and you're sitting around, you literally take your license, right, and take something else with your signature on it. You probably have 2 things in your wallet, maybe a credit card you've signed. Turn them over. Then turn over, and this is your own signature, folks, your own signature. Turn over the license and then start counting, have your friend count how many seconds it takes you to turn the other thing over and then verify that they're the same. It's several seconds, and that's for your signature that you know, not a signature you've never seen before. It pops up, and then you got to look somewhere else to verify it. It's impossible what happens here. It's not possible, which tells you they're not verifying signatures, which I don't really understand how you can do that, but anyway, here's the video. Hadn't started yet, but they're going to in a minute. All right, so it's zooming in on two people. I believe this is Maricopa County, and there you can see there's two people sitting at a desk. Their faces are out, so you can't see the faces, but you can now see this person has done 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. This person now has done 3, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. I mean, this person has now done the fourth. 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38. Anyway, you get the point. This person now has done its fifth. Or I can't tell if it's a man or woman. It's going to be. Folks, they keep saying there's no evidence. There's no evidence. And every time I've tweeted back at this a lot, there's evidence. When you're saying there's no evidence, what you really mean, or you could do the thing from The Princess Bride, you keep saying that. I don't think you know what that means, right? That's evidence right there. That person is not verifying signatures. It is impossible to do it that fast. Why are they not checking signatures, right? And again, if you remember the Kari Lake case, and I do because I followed it, and this is a very important point that they made here. Not Kari Lake, but Katie Hobbs. Several times in that trial, Katie Hobbs' lawyer said, well, you understand that if these rules weren't followed, you can't toss out the votes. And I remember thinking that was a huger deal, that Kari Lake's lawyer should have made a bigger deal. In other words, are you saying that if the law says that you didn't verify signatures, that those things should be thrown out, that you're telling the judge that they shouldn't be thrown out? Oh, absolutely. Because you would disenfranchise the voter, and it's not the voter's fault. Well, then why do we even have the law? Again, these people are telling you as clearly as they can. The reason they won't have all this, voting and signature match and all this crap, it's not voting. You don't need 30 days to do that. You don't, right? You need 30 days to go and figure out the voter rolls, figure out who hasn't voted, fill in the ballot, do all this stuff. And again, the signature match takes time. You can do it. You can figure out what my signature looks like. Right? All you got to do is get my name, and then you go to Fulton County and you search and you find out I own property. And there's a deed to secured debt, I assure you, that's in the public record. You can get it. And in my case, it's much easier. You just go to any federal court I've ever practiced in, and there's a ton I have, right? And my signature is on about 50 documents that you can pull up and you can see it. So anyway, but that takes time, right? To do all that. It's much easier if I can just put a line where the signature needs to go, and then the person just lets it go through. So again, folks, do I know that proves voter fraud? I don't. It could just be that person's lazy and not doing their job. I don't know, but we got to look at it, right? So don't keep telling me that, oh, it's crazy to believe there was something wrong with the election. These people are just nuts. Anyway, so here's the Oompa Loompa. I'm not kidding you. I mean, he does not look healthy, and he's eating a couple Oompa Loompas, but I want you to understand, this is what happens. It starts with one thing, and then he's already said this, so it's got to go further. We need to have guardrails where people will push back and stop saying this. But here's Chris Christie apparently campaigning for president, really. Anyway, here's what he has to say. This is why you should vote for Chris Christie.
I intend to seek the Republican nomination for President of the United States in 2024, and I want your support. Thank you, guys. Have fun.
We met him on the Seaside Heights, New Jersey boardwalk.
You think he can beat Trump?
I'm not making any predictions.
That's smart. Then you can't be wrong.
A big task for Christie will come this month at the first Republican primary debate in Milwaukee.
Are you ready?
Oh, Bob, I was born ready, babe.
What are you going to say to Trump face to face?
Depends on what he says. I can guarantee you I'm going to tell him the truth for 90 minutes because the truth matters. And I think Republican voters need to hear the truth.
Do you think he actually shows up for the debate?
Oh, I do. Yeah.
He keeps suggesting he won't.
Yeah, he loves to tease, Bob.
Finish the sentence for me. If Trump doesn't show up, he is a...
coward. Complete and total coward.
Okay, anyway, Trump, I don't know if he's going to show up or not, folks. But again, this isn't a presidential campaign. And this is not Donald Trump's fault. It's not. It's Chris Christie's fault. Republican voters need to hear the truth, as if we hadn't heard the truth. I mean, why is he doing this, right? Trump's the bad guy. Trump's the bad guy. But then you look at their actions. All right, so a little bit, I think we're now done. Let's see I got about 4 windows. Yeah, so now let's move on to the race stuff. So this has been out there for a while. I hadn't really covered it, but in South Africa, there's this leader, Julius Malema, and he's out there talking about don't be afraid to kill, and it's okay to kill the white farmers. It sounds something like this.
You must never be scared to kill. a revolution demands that at some point there must be killing, because the killing is part of a revolutionary act.
Now look, folks, the reason I put this up here, and let me get to the next one because I really want to point this out. This is the obvious end game with the way the left is treating race in this country and in other countries. They're just a little further down the line, of course, right? Biden has appointed approximately 125 Article 3 judges, the Chutkins and the Cannons that we're going to get to in a minute, right? And like 85% of them have been black women. Now, I don't know. Maybe they happen to just coincidentally be the most qualified people, but come on, really. I know they're not, right? So what he's doing is he's basically violating the law, and he's putting race above other things. And if you do that, eventually it leads to what you're seeing in South Africa and other places. But the bigger problem to me is, this is what I don't understand. Who's it really good for? That South African leader, right? They've had control of South Africa since the 90s, right? At this point, it's not the white farmer that's the problem, right? We know what the problem is and we won't say it. So I saw this, but this will make exactly the point that I've made before and needs to be made, right? And people like Kamala, who we're going to get to, she's the problem. She supposedly wants to help the black people. Okay, here you go right here. So there's a graph that shows that Asian kids whose parents didn't even finish high school, walloping black kids on a standardized test on the SAT, I believe, walloping black kids whose parents have PhDs on the SAT, right? Why is that? Why is an Asian kid completely destroying a black kid, even though the Asian kid comes from a family that didn't even finish high school and in a lot of instances probably doesn't even speak English? And we're not going to do the whole, well, it's poor people and it's this, right? These are people that have PhDs, right? Why is that? It's obviously the culture, right? Why is this culture going on out there? Well, part of the reason is because we're telling people now, right? Oh, it's not your fault. You don't have to work harder. You don't have to have a better culture, right? In other words, the affirmative action. All these years of the affirmative action. Oh, it's not you. It's not you. We're going to get you that. You don't need to fix your culture, right? We're making them worse off. These policies are making them worse off. The scores since we did affirmative action have gone down. And you're seeing this now. If you were to start to try and fix it, it would take you a couple of decades. And we're doubling down on the opposite policy. So you understand, in 10 years, the Asian kids who come from families that don't even speak English and don't even have a high school diploma will be beating the black kids worse than they are now. That's where this is going, and it's not too hard to see. All right, so here we go. We heard all this stuff about, Chutkin this and Chutkin that. Turns out Judge Eileen over the weekend denied a motion by Special Prosecutor Jack Smith when he wanted to tack on a few more charges against some people. And she denied it, and she's given some briefing. Really a bunch of legal mumbo-jumbo you don't need to be worried about. But here's what I want you to understand. Here's Hugo Lowell, one of these left-wing people that sits around and is constantly criticizing Republican judges, right? So he talks about the fact that, she struck down what Jack Smith wanted to do. And here's Joyce Eileen. Looks like a good week to ask the 11th Circuit to replace the judge. Oh, wait a minute. I thought, attacking a judge, you don't believe in democracy, right? Not when it's Judge Cannon, and not when she's doing what's obviously right in this case. But anyway, I just want to throw that out there, just so you know that it's perfectly fine to attack a judge if it's a Republican. I've said this before. The crime now, one of the elements of a crime is it's a Republican, because if it's not a Republican, then it's not a crime. All right, we're going to finish up here. I'm going to be under 40 minutes, which is good. It's kind of a slow news day. You were caught up a few minutes ago. But anyway, so here's Kamala out here. Over 13 million jobs have been created since we took office. Unemployment is under 4% for the longest stretch in 50 years. More Americans are joining the labor force. There's about 15 lies in here. Bidenomics is working. Now, she got a little bit of a community note here from Twitter, but you can't hear this enough. You can't hear it too many times. All right, over 13 million jobs total is factually correct, but missing important context. The July 2023 figure, all right, so just as recently as last month, is 4 million higher than the peak at February 2020 when COVID started, which means Biden has created, quote unquote, to the extent presidents create, which they don't, but if he can take credit for that, which he can't, but if he can, 4 million jobs. That's it. That is an abysmal record year over year for a president, folks. It's about 3 years, 4 million jobs. It's about 1.3 million jobs a year. That's not good. Think about that. It's about 100,000 a month. Not good. Anybody can see that. Not good. Why is unemployment at 4%? Well, obviously because people aren't in the labor force anymore. If you're not there, unemployment is the measure of how many people are looking for work and people who are getting work, right? Yeah, that number's low, but that number can be low for one of two reasons. It can be low because there's tons of jobs out there. That's what they're trying to create. That's not the case. It could also be low if a bunch of people aren't looking. For example, I have not been looking for a job for about 20 years because I'm self-employed. They no longer count me. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but you must know the difference, right? So anyway, the point I'm making here is they're continuing to lie, and they're obvious lies, and they continue to double and triple and quadruple down on these lies. The problem is, folks, when you do that, you're encouraged to lie more. Now you tell bigger lies, and now it's easier for people to see these lies, right? I mean, at some point, people are going to realize what's going on here. All these people do is jail their political opponents, tell us lies every day about what's going on in the world. The economy sucks. Everyone knows it. And they keep bragging about Bidenomics. I really do think we're closer to this thing turning around. And anyway, I hope I'm right about that. We shall see. Anyway, you're now all caught up to date with the news of the day. And if you like this live stream /podcast, hope you tune back in tomorrow.